I have a clip for you of Marjorie Taylor Greene, and then we'll also look at a clip of Bob Goode, both addressing the issue of gender and sex. And what I want to do is play these for you and just absorb them, and then I'm going to respond and address every point that is made. And also I want to use it as a jumping off point to have a basic fundamental conversation about gender and sex, because while Marjorie Greene and Bob Goode are incredibly bad faith, I think some could benefit from a quick recap, refresh on these subjects. So I think it's important to do that, even though it will be basic for sure, but kind of I'll explain how I've synthesized down these subjects to what I will outline. Before we do that, though, here's what kind of caused this to be a segment that I'm doing. Marjorie Greene with a sign that says there are two genders, male and female. It's a little funny, even though it's always mixed up. Gender is technically man and woman. Male and female are technically sexes. That's just the case. I'm sorry, but okay. And then again, it's always confused, so I'm not judging that. But it says trust the science, and we'll talk about the science in a little bit.
God made children. God made all of us, male and female. In his image, he made us. And God doesn't make mistakes. I urge every single Republican and members of Congress to co-sponsor my bill, and we must get it passed. This isn't just a Republican issue. This is an issue across the board. All voters agree.
So you heard her mention children, and it started with that being the motivation for many. And you saw I skipped through a big part where she's doing the normal, the left is groomers and all that nonsense. But it used to be, we just think that we need to have a conversation about children. When are certain treatments appropriate? When are certain conversations appropriate? And number one, they seem to completely not understand or choose not to understand what is and isn't happening when it comes to trans youth specifically. In many cases, lying about what is and isn't happening when it comes to trans youth. Not recognizing there already is a process in place and there are safeguards and there is an emphasis on making sure the proper decision is made and all that. They ignore a bunch on that, but everyone recognizes that's a unique conversation that is nuanced. What is happening now is many within the Republican Party are saying, which is opposed to what they used to say, which was, listen, I'm just focused on the kids, but adults, you're free to do what you want to do. Now it's not even that. Now it's adults are wrong if they are transgender. I mean, we heard Michael Knowles say we need to, I don't even like using this word, but eradicate. This is Michael Knowles, transgenderism. And then saying, no, we're talking about the ideology, not the people. But it is moved to any existence of someone who is transgender is wrong in the eyes of many of these individuals, at least the ideology, as they say. And so that's why it's so important that we talk about this, because they think they're on the side of facts, of science. And I'll walk through why that is so absurd in a second.
Democrats,
this is Bob Goode,
reject the God-created science of sex, the different chromosomes for male and female, and that literally all of the trillion or so cells that make up our being, our body, despite how they may be altered from a physical appearance standpoint, how we may alter our appearance, all trillion or so cells are literally male or female. We can never change that. Every part of our being is male or female, every one of our trillion or so cells. The fact is, God does not make mistakes. He creates us perfectly unique as individuals, and all of us are either immutably male or immutably female.
Okay, so let's start going through this. The first thing you must understand is the science is very much on the side of what I'm about to explain. Before we get to the gender sex discussion, let me just fly through some of these talking points to get them out of the way. Number one, because the motivation is always cited as being to protect the children, as I will say now a gazillion times. If you actually cared about protecting the children, you would probably start with the leading cause of death, which of course is firearms for children in America. And it is individuals like Marjorie Greene, Bob Goode, who actively stand against policy that would help to decrease those deaths by properly regulating firearms. So clearly that's disingenuous, and they lie about and misunderstand what is and isn't happening when it comes to trans youth and what that process looks like and all of the things we've discussed in the past. Next quick talking point, God doesn't make mistakes, they say. And so that's what proves their point. I know they don't believe that. If someone came into the world, as happens, as a hypothetical, but actually happens, physically, because of a physical condition, they can't hear, but a surgery would allow them to hear. Would they say God doesn't make mistakes, so they can't get the surgery? No, of course not. Okay, that's not something you actually believe either. And then whenever the constant talking point, very excited to finally get to say this because they're usually proudly rejecting the science, trust the science, they're actually misunderstanding the science pretty significantly. And one of the quick things that shows that is they say male, female, that's it, boom. But when we're talking about sex characteristics, gonads, genitals, chromosome patterns, 2% of the American population does not fall into male, female, strictly biologically. Sex characteristics, this is science we're talking about, gonads, genitals, chromosome patterns, 2% don't fall into the binary of male, female. That's just the reality. That's science. So it's interesting. You're so confident, but leaving out 2% of the American population. And now we get to our conversation about gender and sex. And so to do this is how I like to kind of break things up in my brain. Nice, boom, boom. We're going to do it with what you are, the what, and the who you are, okay? So what you are, think of that in terms of your biological scientific reality. That's something that science can give us insight into, that is biological. All right. And they pretend that progressives are rejecting or not wanting to believe the science. Oh, far from the truth, sir. Because what you are biologically is something that I think everyone, at least should, but I know everyone that I'm aware of on the progressive left absolutely recognizes us as a biological organism, similar to other biological organisms, other animals have a sex, a biological sex, right? What we are, physically, biologically. Now, that biological sex, because it's a significant part of what we are biologically, it does play a role in how we exist as an organism. But because humans have a heightened consciousness, have an increased intelligence and ability to be aware of others' identities and our own identities, this abstract concept of identity, and be able to interact with that in a way that other organisms can't. That brings us to the who we are. And so because of the significant role that what we are biologically in terms of sex, now sex isn't the only thing that makes us what we are, but it is a part of what makes us as a biological organism what we are. It's going to play a role, a major role in who we are. That is an abstract concept relating to identity. And so as time has gone on, we've developed this identity, gender, a part of who we are, again, not the entire who we are, but a part of who we are that plays a major role. That is all these different identity characteristics and realities and ways in which individuals exist in life in this world that we associate with the biological sex, the what we are. So based on what biological sex an individual is born as, there's all of these who we are's attached, associated with that biological reality. And so then you can conceive of the who in terms of gender, the part of who we are, gender, not aligning with the biological sex an individual is born as, if identity is, as we recognize it to be, far more complex than something biology can identify for us. And so if there's a misalignment between what we've associated with these biological sex being gender, the who related stuff, and the biological sex itself, when that is unaligned, misaligned, why would you say force the person to not be who they are because of your understanding of what should and shouldn't associate with the what they are biologically? That seems cruel to me. That seems genuinely cruel to me, to say, no, you can't be who you are in terms of your gender. And so hopefully that kind of gives you a sense. To recap, you have your biological reality, biological sex, that plays a big role in how you exist. Because of that, gender is all of these identity related things we've associated with biological sex, and it plays a major role in how we exist in this world. It's a part of who we are. It's part of our identity that matters. And so when this identity does not align, or that part of your identity, with the part of your physical, biological reality, at least align in the sense of align with the associations we've made, then of course we would support and celebrate you being who you are. And we can recognize the biological reality, as I'm confident I do far better than Marjorie, Greene, and Bob Goode, and also celebrate and support the identity reality and making sure people are treated in the way they should be treated on that front. Hopefully that makes sense. It probably is far too basic for many of you, but I think it's good to go through those concepts occasionally, and that's the way that I chose to do it. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before all the clips are uploaded to YouTube, plus get the extra bonus show on Saturdays, you can do so by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. That's lukebeasleyshow.com/membership. Link in the description.